just dropped off, we have a BMW 1977 R100RS. Now, this bike has been parked for a lot of years, and I'm not sure exactly what it's going to take to get going again. The rear wheel doesn't feel like it's rolling very easy. Lower fairing has damage. I do have the parts for that, but it doesn't look too bad. Not necessarily loving the purple paint, but it's got 14,718 miles on it, and we're gonna see if we can get it up and running again so the current owner can sell it. So I'm just giving the whole thing a bit of a look over right now. I need to get the key. It was in here when I first went and looked at it before it was delivered, but I think they took it out before they transported it over here. So I can't really start working on it and see if it's got spark or anything, but I'm gonna have it a look. Kind of neat. It's got this period correct tank cover, and I believe this tank cover served dual purpose to allow a tank bag to clip in here. So that's kind of cool. Seems kind of weird. It slides onto some hinges up there. It's a little tricky. I had it, but then I slid it off. I probably should have just left it on. But you need to slide it off the pins, pull it all the way off. It is a Denfield saddle. I don't know if all BMWs had them or if they were an option. Kind of a weird thing with BMWs, the side covers are held on with rubber bands, which seems kind of strange to me, but and then I wanted to look at the brake fluid, but the master cylinder, the reservoir, is underneath the gas tank, so I'm going to have to get to that way. Switch gear is a little weird on some of these older BMWs. I'll show you here. And I wasn't 100% sure what I had here, but I know this is the kill, and I believe it's off, on, off, so it needs to be in the middle position to be running. Turn signals are on the right hand instead of the left. That would be on most modern motorcycles, and that'd be the start. This side, I think that's like a push to pass and a high beam, low beam, but not 100% sure. That should be the horn. And maybe this turns on the lights and a parking light. I don't know what those three switches are because I don't have any indication there. This looks to be like a steering dampener, so you can dial that to whatever setting you want. And the key is up here on the fairing, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, once I've got the key, I'll see if I've got lights on it. I'll see if it gives me any spark, and yeah, we'll start getting into it and see if she'll start. The guy that was holding this for the owner actually said he just put in a new AGM battery, so the battery should be good. To pull the gas tank off, we'll disconnect the two fuel taps, and then there's just a finger screw underneath the back here. And I'll show you in a minute. Won't come off because it's strapped on because of the cover. So this one only has one of the two plastic finger tight nuts that hold the gas tank on present. Not sure what happened to the other one, but another interesting thing about this bike is that the brake master reservoir is under the tank, which is kind of a weird spot for it, not terribly accessible. So I assume these electrical leads are to let you know if the brake fluid gets too low, but I have here a brake fluid tester. So you just put the leads in, hit the button, and you see that red light there, orange. That means the moisture content, the water content in there is too high. So that brake fluid is no good. Next thing I'm gonna do, just for fun, is see if we've got spark. So it looks like that side may have been running a little bit lean. Kind of a yellow color to it. Have a look and see what that might mean. And this side is wet. For a bike that hasn't been run for 6 years, that's very unusual. No idea why that would be wet. It looks like we got two very different burns on the two sides. So let's see what happens. Good spark there. Yep, good spark on both sides. So that's good. So since it's got spark, I've hooked up my auxiliary fuel tank and I've just let the carbs fill up, although I can see that this one is leaking pretty badly. Alright, let's shut that off. I'm going to see if it starts. It's not going to start if I don't put the spark plugs back in. Alright, I'm not sure what's going to happen since that carb's leaking so much, but let's give it a shot. Ooh, almost. Alright, so there's some life there. I gotta take care of that carb because I'm leaking a lot of gas in my garage right now. And hopefully once I take care of that, I'm assuming it's just the needle valve, then she'll start. I assume these will need a little bit more work than this. You can see it's still dripping. Ugh. But I'm going to just try and pop the bowl off and see if I can get the needle valve to stop dripping. The clip carbs are nice for being able to drop off like that. The bowl doesn't look too bad. I've definitely seen worse. Let's see how bad this is. If I... It's stopping there. So maybe I've got it free, or maybe the level's just not right. So let's put it back together and see if it stops or if it just keeps going. Put that off of the gasket. Well, that seems like that stopped the drip. Well, it's still dripping a little bit. Not as bad as it was, though. It was just pouring out before. I'm going to try and start it one more time and see what happens. runs. While I'm out here, the next thing I did was actually change a couple of bulbs in the turn signals, because when I tested them, the left side was working on the rear, but not on the front, and the right side was working on the front, but not on the rear. Or actually, I'm sorry, I've got that reversed. It was working here, not on the front, not working here, but on the front. So I took the known good bulb and checked it over here, or vice versa. I took the known good bulb, checked it, found out that it was indeed a bulb issue. Same thing on the front, and both are working now. These are really simple. It's just 2 screws to pull it off. You push and twist to get the bulb out. And at the front, very similar, just 2 screws, push and get the bulb out. And now I've got turn signals working all over. So the brake light doesn't seem like it's going to be quite as easy to deal with. I've got a tail light that comes on, but no brake light is showing up. I tried another bulb in it to check, and didn't work. The wiring for this actually runs inside the frame, which is kind of interesting. So I have to figure out which one of these wires is for the turn signals, which one is for the brake light, and which one's for the tail light, and make sure I've got power there. So I played a little bit with the tail light. I still haven't quite figured out what's going on. There's good continuity between the connection and the back, but the wiring, it's hard to check what's going on in here. They come up from the switch at the rear brake and hide in this wiring harness, and I haven't quite figured out where the switch is at the handlebar yet, so I'm going to come back to that. In the meantime, I'm going to get rid of this old fluid, and I'm going to pull the calipers off and see how they're looking. Because these looked a little rusty, I did hit them with a little PB blaster the other night, so hopefully they're not too tough to crack open. Like, I'm just going to crack open the one. Oh dear. There it goes. Okay, that was making me a little nervous. I'm not sure why it's not sucking more out. There must have been a lot of air in there. Something's not right. Maybe the other side will have more. I got basically no fluid out of the other side either, which makes me think that something might be blocked. The needle valve itself might be blocked. So I call it a needle valve. It's a bleeder valve. I've got a little corroded. Yeah, getting more fluid there. I could hear it up at the reservoir too. All right, with as much fluid out of there as I can get, I'm going to disconnect this union bolt. So with that disconnected, there's a cover bolt and a spring that are down here at the bottom. I don't want to fight this too much, so I'm going to go for the zip gun. Not a reverse thread, is it? Oh. There it goes. My word. That should have been much easier than that. All right. Now I have to get a 125 pitch bolt of some sort to screw in there to pull out the pin. Not 100% sure what size bolt this is, but I just tried a couple until I found one that fit. That screws in, and then it should pull out just like that. It's got an O-ring on it, some grease so it can pivot, and now this should just slide off. There we go. Whew. And that is the caliper. Pads have plenty of life on them, but it'll be interesting to see if the piston still moves as easily as it should. So let's see what we've got here. So this pin goes up through the holder, and you can see it's eccentric, and that means that it allows the caliper to float, but always stay perpendicular to the pads as opposed to just pivoting. So it, as the pads wear and it pulls closer, it can stay straight. So that's kind of cool. And that seems to turn fine. This grease is really old. So it'll need a little cleanup, but it seems like it's turning well, and the surface is good. If I can find it, I might try and replace that O-ring. I'm not too worried about it. You can see what the bottom of this looks like, and with the hole for the bolt to screw into to pull it out. It looks like there's also a straight slot in there, but I'm not sure how you would pull it with that. And then that on the bottom gets covered up by this cap and spring, and this is what was tight and that I needed to use the rattle gun on. And this is our bleeder valve, and it appears to be clogged. You can see how corroded that is there. There's a hole somewhere in there that's supposed to communicate with the top, so I got to see if that can be saved. And then I have to figure out how to get the pads out of here. Looks like there's a spring on the back. That's very rusted. Oof. Look at how thin that is right there. So with that, I think this pad just should knock out. Yep, there it goes. Well, it looks like the pad material is separating from the backing plate, so those really have to be replaced. And it is really worn on the inside, so it wasn't wearing evenly. It's got a bevel to it. Wonder if that means it wasn't turning as well as I thought, or if that's just normal. And this one I think just pulls out. I wonder if there's a trick to that. I might have to do a little bit of research to get that off. It feels like it should just pop off, but it is not. Pretty sure it's got a pin like that, and I think it just popped into a groove back there. Before I resort to a manual, I'm going to try one more thing. I've got to figure that out then. Let's see if the other one's any better. Yeah, see, that one just lifts right out. So there's something holding that one in. I'm going to try and pry it a little bit more. There it goes. Didn't want to force it too much if I was doing it wrong, but there is a lot of crud in there. Yuck. And it looks like, okay, that was a little rubber O-ring. I suspect this is what goes on there. Yeah, there was one on the other side. Okay, see if we can get that piston out of there. Maybe we'll start with this one since it seemed like it was a little easier. Okay, so I've got a rag stuffed in the back, and I'm just going to see if a little bit of air pressure popped it right out. That was the easy one. So hopefully the other one comes out that easy as well, but let's see what this one looks like. Not too bad. I think that's going to work. Ugh. We got some yuckiness over here, though. Hopefully this one pops out just as easily. Yep. Let's see what it looks like inside. Oh, good. That one looks serviceable, too. A lot of rust in here, but the piston itself looks serviceable. The brake light issue appears to be connected to this switch. This is a pressure switch, so as the master creates pressure in the fluid, it's supposed to close the loop and open this, make contact between these two. And it's not doing it. I played with it a little bit, but I haven't been able to get anything to do it. And it might, at this point, I don't have any fluid in it, so it might not be building enough pressure. So I think I might have to pull this off and try and bench test it a little bit. The rear brake also being tricky, and I'm trying to understand how this switch works, but I think as the brake lever is activated, it's supposed to let this little button right there, I know that's hard to see, I think this is on a spring that's supposed to slide forward, but it is locked into place. You can see it looks pretty rusted and corroded, but I think that when the brake goes forward, that's supposed to slide forward, or when the brake lever goes down, the stop at the front is supposed to slide forward with it and make the switch work. Not 100% sure, so I've got to try and take that off too and see if I can figure that out on the bench. This is that switch, and as near as I can tell, when the stop is against it, when the brake is up, it should not be signaling. And when it goes down, I believe there's supposed to be a spring that makes this go forward. But it is completely seized. So I'm going to try and see if I can get it moving again. Because it is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Yeah, that feels chunky. See how it's moving now? That's forward, that's back. Yeah, there's like no spring in there. It should want to spring back. I've pulled the front brake switch off the top of or front of the master cylinder so I can bench test that. As I understand it, this thing shouldn't require a lot of pressure to trigger. So I have my little air cannon here. And yeah, I get no change in tone there. So that tells me that the switch is not working. I don't know for sure if this is strong enough, but from what I've been able to find online, it seems like it should, because it should only be a couple of PSI to trigger that. I'm going to try and actually poke it with something and see if I can get it to make contact, or maybe if it's stuck and it'll free it. So I'm going to try that next. And it should be making tone on there if it was working, but it is not. Just to double check that the switches are the issue with the brake light, I'm going to run a jumper wire and make contact between the 2 points that the switch should be connecting, and confirm that the tail light or the brake light does come on. That confirms the rear. For the front, I've just got this little jumper wire. And that confirms the front. In addition to the brake light, I mentioned the horns aren't working. So I popped this rubber cowl off so I could see how the wiring for the brake or the horn switch goes, and I can see that it runs back into the headlight. And to take the headlight off, there are 4 of these little finger bolts, finger screws. One goes there, one is right there. One is right there, and then there's 2 on the other side as well. So I'm trying to get those out. Then I should be able to pop off the headlight sort of rubber boot, and then I should be able to get the headlight off. Then I can determine if the problem with the horn is the switch or somewhere in the wiring beyond that. Okay, with the boot out of the way, I just needed to undo the bottom ones and loosen the top ones, and then it was able to slip out. I need to get the headlight out, and the only thing I can find for that is this one little screw down here, which at first I thought it was an adjustment screw, but it looks like the only one that's holding it on, so I'm going to try and loosen that and see if the headlight will pull out. They don't make it easy, but I've got this little ratcheting screwdriver, and that did it, because it will just lift out at this point. Unplug that. Taking some baby steps here, I checked this top fuse for the horn to see if that was going to work, and then I checked the horn switch, which is this brown and white wire right behind the green one there, to this green one. And when I put contacts on those and hit the button, I got tone, so that tells me there's continuity there. So then I chased it around over here, and BMWs use relays for all sorts of stuff. And this right here is the horn relay. And I was able to wiggle that, and the horn works now. So it was just apparently some sort of a little bit of corrosion on the contacts down there. So that's good news. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the rear wheel off. It wasn't turning very well earlier. It feels like it might actually be okay. But there's something weird going on, because when I was playing with the shifter, so I'm in a gear here. I'm in about 3rd gear, I think. And if I click it halfway down, it'll go into a false neutral. So I'm going to pull the rear wheel off. To do this, I'm going to just back off the rear brake adjuster real quick, just to take tension out of that. And then I've got a 22mm wrench from another bike that I'll use on the rear axle to just loosen that bolt up. Bolt, a big thick washer, and now, yeah, so that was 22mm. The other side has got a 13mm pinch bolt. That was on there quite tight, but I got it loosened now. With the pinch bolt loose, it should just tap out. All right, so I've been able to give it a few whacks using a screwdriver as a drift, and it's moving a little bit. This is our rear axle, and you can see it's got a fair bit of corrosion down here at the end. There's definitely some wear marks, but I'll try and clean that up as much as I can. With the axle out, I can just shift the wheel to the left off the brake hub. Of course, with the baggage here, I need a wheel drop out, but I don't seem to have one on my floor. All right, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna lift the back end up high enough to get the wheel actually out of the way. All right, well, that was a little bit sketchy. I tipped the bike up on one side and slipped a 2x4 under one part of the center stand, and then did the same thing on the other side. That got me just enough clearance to get the wheel out. It was still pretty snug, so hopefully I can get that back in there without too much trouble. This is going to give me a chance to clean this up and investigate what we've got. So we have a saying in my house that it's not clean, but it's cleaner. So I've cleaned up the rear hub and I've cleaned up the wheel as much as I can. It seems to me like the turning issue is somewhere either in the final drive. Well, it feels like it's in the final drive. It feels like the whole drive needs to be opened up, cleaned and re-greased. It feels like old grease is in there to me, and that's kind of what's holding things up. I'll have to check the oil as well and see what the final drive oil looks like. So hopefully once it warms up, the grease will loosen up. But whoever ends up getting this bike from my neighbor, hopefully they will give it a good going through. I mean, the whole thing's ripe for a decent restoration, so I don't see anything wrong. The splines aren't super sharp or anything like that. It just doesn't turn as well as I would like. It's in neutral right now, and I can't spin the spline by hand without pushing it with something like a screwdriver. So that is what it is right now, and I'm going to try and get the wheel back on. With the leverage of the wheel back on there, it does feel like it's turning better than it was. Still not exactly free spinning, but I don't think with the shaft drive it ever really would be. So according to the manual, I'm supposed to tighten the rear axle to about 35 foot-pounds, but because of the muffler, I can't get my torque wrench in there. So, beep. I think that's about right. It's not super critical as long as the pinch bolt is also tightened, because the pinch bolt is going to keep that from going anywhere, but you don't want this nut to loosen up and come off. I've done enough of these things that I'm going to say I'm probably pretty close to the target. And she's back on her feet. Last thing I'm going to do before I go inside for the day is try and see if I can figure out if, in fact, this gas tank has a leak. I don't think it does, but the previous, well, not the owner, the previous guy that was watching the bike for my neighbor said he thought it had a fuel leak. And you can see some crud along here where the paint was bubbling. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't so well. But he thought it was rusted out at the seam. Now I can see there's a bunch of sealer in there. So I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to test this because I don't want to put gas in it if it does have a leak. So what I decided I'm going to do is I've got this rubber bung. I'm going to put this on the gas cap, so that'll block that off. And then I'm going to leave this tap off. I'm going to open this one up, and I'm going to put a Schrader valve here. And I'm just going to pump a couple of PSI into it and spray some Dawn and water around over here and see if I get any bubbles. So that's the theory anyway. I'm going to see if this works. I have a little bit of lubricant to try and get this bung shoved down in there. It feels tight. To check and make sure I don't get any air bubbles there as well. So yeah, with this valve open, so I'm not seeing any bubbles come out from anywhere. And if I open the tap, there's clearly air pressure in there. So I think we're going to be good on the leak. I'm going to try that one more time and just make sure I'm not getting any. Gotta be careful, I don't want to over pressurize the tank. Alright, I don't think there's a leak in this. I think it's going to be good. So this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to wrap up part one right here. I've got parts on order, mostly for the brakes, but there are a couple other little incidental things too, like there was one of the screws for the gas tank, a gasket for the rear tail light. I do have some new fuel line and filters because these are cracked, and that's where some of the leaking I was getting was from. I probably should have opened up the air box to take a look at the air filter, but I didn't get around to that this time, and I haven't checked any of the oil levels or fluids. I need to talk with the bike's owner about how much more she wants to spend, because right now we're into it for parts for about $250, which isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, but it's her bike. I've got to let her make the calls. I don't want to just be spending her money willy-nilly. Yeah, so far so good. It's good to know it's a runner. And you know, once the brakes are built and there's new fuel lines on it and stuff, I should be able to take it for a test ride in the next video. If you don't want to miss that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I hope you like the video. You know, I'm spending a lot of energy making these videos, and I'm enjoying it. But there are days where I would rather just shut the camera off and work in the garage without it. So if you appreciate these, if they're helpful at all, please let me know. Please comment, please ask questions, share if you've got somebody who has a similar bike or an issue. Yeah, it really helps the channel a lot, and I would love to grow it. I have these pipe dreams of maybe turning this into a soft landing into retirement, if that's in the cards at all. Who knows? Who knows? I know I kind of suck at it. I know I need to improve my audio, and I don't always have the best word part. But, you know, I keep practicing and I keep trying, and hopefully the quality of the videos gets a little bit better over time. And if I work on a few more things, maybe I can invest in a little bit better equipment. I'd really like to stop shooting on my phone. But this is what I got, and so I'm doing what I can with what I've got. Hope to see you next time. Cheers. As always, thanks for watching.